I was not expecting the D-pad to be this good. It's finally here, the update to the ASUS ROG Ally. It's the Ally X. Now in this box we have the newest version coming 1 year after the ROG Ally. It's the Ally X, and there are a huge number of changes to this device, but not to some of the areas that you might expect. That means in almost every area performance has been improved, but will it actually be that much faster? We're going to find out soon, but today, let's get it out of the box. As you can see, I've got the box for the ROG Ally X here. Now this was sent to me free of charge for the purposes of making this video. I don't have to say anything specific about it, and I don't have to send it back at the end. All opinions are my own. So the main question I think a lot of you are going to be asking is, if I already own an Ally, is this something I should upgrade to? And that's going to be a little bit of a trickier question. But if you don't own an Ally, if for whatever reason, if you're holding back because of any technical specs or issues, those have most likely been resolved because they've improved the D-pad, they've improved the battery life, they've improved the shape of the device, and it all comes at a small little price bump, but it has been improved. Whether that price bump is going to be worth it to you is going to be something you can decide later, but let's for now get it out of here. ROG Ally X. Pull these tabs open like so, and it is hiding a slightly improved version of the cardboard stand that came with the original. I thought the original cardboard stand was kind of hilarious, so the fact that they've improved on it, but it's still a cardboard stand, is mega funny to me. Let's look at the device itself. X. Let's free you from your plastic casing. There is nothing quite as satisfying as unboxing a new handheld. Now there's obviously a huge number of changes on the inside, but now that we've got it out of the box, let's go over the things on the outside. First of all, let's check out the analog sticks. I think that these have been slightly adjusted. Maybe they're a little bit tighter than before. Actually, yeah, they're significantly tighter than before. I've got the old version here. These are much tighter. Also gonna check out these buttons. They feel pretty much the same. If you look at them side by side, you can see that the shoulder buttons are actually a little bit, ever so slightly bigger and a slightly different shape to before. The triggers on the original Ally were always a little bit small. Honestly, I had no issue with it. I think being a handheld, it's okay for some elements to be a little bit smaller. But on the Ally X, these are much more substantial triggers, and they definitely have that scooped shape. It looks like the start and select buttons are the same. This is like the armory crate button, and this is like the shortcut menu. On the back of the original Ally, we had 2 extra buttons here, which you could program to do whatever you wanted, and they are super useful the way that the software has been set up. On the new version, as you can see, they are ever so slightly small. I say ever so slightly. They're like half the size. Maybe people were complaining that they pressed them by accident. I actually definitely did press them by accident. When I was playing Street Fighter, every now and then I would like accidentally press the shortcut that would send me to the Windows desktop. Just by feeling for them, you don't accidentally actuate them or anything. They're not overly sensitive. One thing I haven't mentioned, which is insanely obvious, is can you see that it's a different color now? We had only a white option for the original ROG Ally, I believe, but now I think the Ally X always comes in a black edition. I think maybe they avoided a black color just because they didn't want to look too much like they were copying the Steam Deck, or they wanted to separate themselves and look different. But I want to talk about ergonomics because personally I've always loved the Ally. I felt like it was the perfect shape for my hands, whether I was playing on a desk like this or if I was playing with my hands up like this. I'm one of the people that's a little bit nervous about the changes on the Ally X because in theory all of them are improvements, but honestly I felt like the original Ally was so good. I was like, I'm scared if I hear about anything that's going to change to it. But now, the most exciting part of this video, we're going to try out the D-pad. Now, the reason I'm excited about the D-pad is because I play a lot of fighting games. Up, down, left, right. Oh, okay. It feels tighter than before. This large plastic dome on the top of the Ally, it felt like it traveled way too far down. It had a lot of travel. I just wanted to move left and right in a puzzle game. I would accidentally hit down just because this thing is a massive giant dome, and when you've got a dome cover on the D-pad, that sort of thing can accidentally happen. In general, the D-pad on the ASUS Ally was fine, but it wasn't my favorite for fighting games. I did play fighting games on here all the time. It's just that every now and then I would mess up and I'd be like, it's not my favorite D-pad. I'm very excited about the changes to this one. We've got a much thinner up, down, left, right, plus shape here on this one. And we also have little ridges here on the corners. And without looking down at the D-pad, I feel very confident that I have got my thumb on that exact part of the dome. Because if you are going for a dome shape like this, it becomes more important that the protrusions on the D-pad that come up, they have to be kind of harder plastic, or they've got to come up a little bit higher. They're just going to have a more defined shape. But as you can see here on the Ally X, they're not sharp ridges, but they definitely feel more defined. Now we have a fan right in the middle. I'm not 100% sure if this is an outtake fan or an intake fan, but pretty much the whole arrangement has been changed. Where before we had the headphone jack and then the SD card, now we have two USB ports with the headphone jack moved all the way over here and the SD card as well. Now, I think the issue with the SD cards that were overheating, again, mine didn't have that issue personally. I think it's because the processor is in this area and it gets really, really hot, and so the heat is coming out of the heat sink and it's just bleeding into this whole zone over here. And then if the SD card gets too hot, it can, I think, probably pop out of the slot. But here on the Ally X, you can see it's moved all the way over here, and presumably it gets significantly less hot over there. And one of the biggest differences is we don't have the proprietary port anymore. Before, we had this ASUS ROG XG mobile interface. Not very catchy, and I'm going to be honest, I assume that most people don't own that. Even if you were doing that, it's probably more flexible to just have two USB-C ports. Now, of course, it's great that we do have the SD card slot, but on the Ally X, by default, I believe this unit comes with 1 terabyte of storage. On the original Ally, this went for, I think, $650, and it had a 512 gigabyte hard disk on here, which is plenty of storage for most of the games that you want to bring around. You don't actually need to have an SD card in here at all. You already have 1 terabyte to start. And if you were to put like a 1 terabyte SD card in here, now you've got a 2 terabyte device. Changes on the outside are all very exciting, but how does it actually feel in game? And most importantly, especially for me, is how does this D-pad feel in game, for fighting games especially? So excited to test it out. Let's get into some gameplay and give me my first impressions for the ROG Ally X. Alright, this is really exciting, guys, because I've got the Ally X set up, and I'm just going to show you here. I've got Street Fighter 6 running on here, but I was not expecting the D-pad to be this good. So the Ally X has been changed in numerous ways. We talked about the ergonomics. It's also just thicker in general, which also makes it heavier because it's got a larger battery inside. So all these things do make a large difference. But let's jump straight to the important part, which is the D-pad. Now, just to show you an up-close comparison of the previous model, which was the Ally, the fact that it's a large disc-shaped D-pad does mean that when you're going left, right, you will sometimes accidentally press down or press up. So it's important to have a good D-pad that actually listens to you and does what you want. And watch this. I have no issues with it accidentally jumping up into the sky. When I want to go into the sky, I actually do. I am actually wondering if maybe the D-pad on the Ally X is better than a lot of actual pad controllers that I actually test. So here we are in a match, and I often use this character to test a lot of moves because he has certain things where you do like a fast fall, you press down, down really quickly. And he also has a move where he rolls from down forward C like this, and then he rolls into a quarter circle back motion. Now, if the D-pad has issues, it will go from this move and it will skip this move because it won't actually register the down input, which we need as part of the quarter circle backward motion. As you can see, I'm having no issues going from the down forward move to the quarter circle back. I can go from a down forward motion to a quarter circle back, and every single time it works without skipping the down input. Now, there are two other things that are pretty difficult on a bad D-pad, but on this D-pad, they seem to work just fine. When you're in the sky, if you press down, down, you do a fast fall. Obviously, that's important to be able to have a good enough height on here so I can actually press down, down on here without bumping into the flat part of the console. But we don't want the D-pad to be so flat that we accidentally get jump inputs. And one of the inputs that we want to do not accidentally is to go up into the sky and then do a forward C like this. This is a combo I do in almost all of my videos just because there's a fast fall followed by the jump back into the forward C, and I need to make sure that I press exactly the right inputs. Otherwise, I'm going to miss the timing, I'm going to jump in the wrong direction, and I just find that on this Ally X D-pad, it just does exactly what I want. Alright, the last and final test is to go into a puzzle game to show you that when you press left and right, it actually does what you want, and you cannot afford to have a D-pad that does random movements when you're playing a puzzle game. So basically, in a fighting game, you're pressing left and right, and if you press left or right a few too many times, you know, you can kind of correct yourself. But if you actually do a jump in a fighting game, that's bad. And if you're in a puzzle game, if you press up or down, you end up dropping the piece down like this. So for example, if I was trying to move this piece left and right, and then I want to go right, and then I accidentally press down, then I actually end up with the piece solidified in place, and now I have to deal with getting it out of the way so that I can actually go and do my chains. But in the short few moments where I've tested the Ally X, I'm happy to say that it doesn't do any sort of random down movements when really I'm just trying to do left and right movement, and that's because this whole D-pad has been tightened up. Every time a new handheld comes out, I'm excited about the form factor, about the power involved, how am I going to be able to play various fighting games on it, puzzle games on it, but I'm never excited about the D-pad. I always know, I basically know for a fact that the D-pad is going to be bad. But this D-pad here, I know I've only just unboxed the console and given it a very short test, but it actually does what I want, and I'm blown away. So there's a lot to be excited about here with the Ally X and this D-pad that they've built into it, but there are a few things that I'm still not 100% keen on. For example, the fact that it's just heavier than before. This thing has double, if I'm not mistaken, it's double the size of the battery, and that makes this thing quite a bit heavier. Not only is it heavier, but it is also a little bit thicker. So when you have your hands on the back of here and it has these new ergonomic grips, it really encourages you to hold it like a gamepad. But the difference between a gamepad and the Ally X is that there is a giant console right here in the middle. Because you can't wrap your fingers all the way around, you end up kind of gripping onto the grippy part of the console, but then your fingers just going to go flat around here. And this weird combination of being gripped around but also flat at the ends of your fingers, it just ends up feeling kind of awkward, and it doesn't feel as stable as having actual grips. For example, this is what a normal console controller looks like. When I hold it, you can see my fingers go all the way around. I'm holding it like a tube. I found in the very short time that I've had to test it that I was already getting like pins and needles in my fingers. My fingers were going like kind of numb because of the weight of the device and just being unable to really grip it that comfortably. Now it's early days, so probably I just haven't found the right way to hold it without my fingers getting tired. Also, when I'm playing here on a desk, my hands don't get nearly as tired because I'm not supporting the weight of it. So if you have a table in front of you when you're playing, I think it's not going to be as much of an issue. But when I was mostly testing it, I was sitting on the sofa and I was kind of supporting the whole weight of this thing with just my fingers, and I was like, why are my hands numb? I've only been playing for like 45 minutes. That's not a very long time. To be fair, the Ally is not a lot lighter, but it is a little bit thinner. The plus side is that it does last a lot longer. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to say about this for this first day. I just wanted to say that the screen is still beautiful. I would much prefer to play it on the Ally to almost all of the other handhelds I have, just because it has a 120 hertz screen built in. Not every fighting game runs at 120 hertz, but there are many benefits when you've got a faster refresh screen, and also there are many games that actually do run at 120 hertz on Steam, so I love playing on the Ally over all the other handhelds for that reason. But now I have one massive reason to choose the Ally over all the other handhelds again, and now it's because of this D-pad. And this wasn't a bad D-pad, it's just that it had accidental down and accidental jump inputs when I was playing every now and then, often enough that it was annoying and I wouldn't want to actually play ranked matches on this. But last night, I jumped straight into ranked matches. I was just like, I feel confident playing on the actual handheld controller itself, because this is not far off from being just as good as a proper dedicated D-pad on an actual pad controller. Listen, that's it for my unboxing and testing of the Ally X. There's obviously a lot more testing that needs to be done because I need to push this thing, really see what games it can play, how it lasts over time, and how I really feel about the D-pad over time. But the first day here, just unboxing it, untesting it, and playing it for a short amount of time, I didn't think this was ever going to happen. I thought, we're never going to have a handheld with a D-pad that's actually good enough for playing fighting games. But if I had to choose any handheld right now for playing fighting games, I would jump straight to this one, because almost every other D-pad on every other handheld has some annoying issue. It's just like difficult to press the diagonals, or they get accidental down inputs, or it skips input, or there's just something wrong with it. It's just a little bit flappy, or just the shape of it is wrong. This just does everything right without trying to like reinvent the wheel or something. It's a dome type D-pad, but it's got the ridges for the up, down, left, right. It doesn't skip inputs. I jump when I want to jump. I don't accidentally press down and drop things in puzzle games. I'm going to stop gushing about it now. I'm really happy with it so far, but it is day one. So do stay tuned for the full review. I'm going to wait a few weeks. I'm going to actually test this thing, put it through its paces, and I'll post a full review soon. So make sure that you're subscribed for that. And if you want to check out more about video games, controllers, and all that good stuff, be sure to check out this video next. I'm crazy excited about this. I've been NihongoGamer. I'll see you real soon.